the reading of two amendments. Let's have a roll call, please.
Vice Mayor Watts.
Here.
Councilwoman Knappel.
Here.
Councilwoman Scott. Here. Councilman Evil.
Here.
Councilman Petty. Absent. Councilman Reese is absent. And Attorney Moore.
Okay, first item because there was an item on here originally about voting on the local sales tax amendment. We had some very good news this afternoon. Fantastic news, as a matter of fact. And Mr. Jacob called and said that the Department of Revenue has, in their graces, gone back and realized that we actually passed in the town of Carthage an ordinance back in 1998 that was then put on, what am I trying to say? It was a resolution, referendum, excuse me.
Right.
Good, I've lost the word. The referendum, and was passed and was actually collected for about a year before then the county moved in. So the Department of Revenue has declared ours, and actually Gordonsville's too, continues on as without any hesitation to go on, so which is really good news because we were looking at a deficit of $400,000 a year if we didn't figure out what to do. So this is good news. It doesn't change anything. It just goes forward as it has always been, basically. So with that in mind, we don't have to, yes, I know, it's great news. I want to cheer. So we don't have to vote on that ordinance anymore because it's a moot point. So yay, you can clap, yes. We were struggling to figure out how in the world do we deal with this. So this is very good news from the Department of Revenue. So that said, we will move on then to the second reading of our 2019-20 budget ordinance, all those numbers there, okay? So Ms. Jennifer,
Okay.
you take it away, please.
Sure. So in your packet, I went through and I also included a copy of all the changes that I've made from each meeting that we've had, from the budget workshop, from the first reading, and then also I found out yesterday that we needed to budget in for our different grants, and those weren't included in the original budget that I provided you guys at the first reading. So if y'all want to go through each department like we did last time, we can, and I can point those out to you, but I did include those on that sheet. And then I've also gone through and updated the revenues and the expenses to date, so you guys can get a better look at that. You also asked me to do a 2% raise and a 75% raise. So the line item budget that you guys have is the current budget that y'all voted on the first time. And so the top sheets like this is the current budget that we've got. And then I've also included what the difference will be later on in your packet. It's got 2% and 75 cents on it.
So the way we will approach this is we'll take the budget that was brought forward from last time that y'all voted for, plus a few of the things that were already
That were
added.
added.
That had to be added. What we need is a motion to approve this in a second. Then we can discuss if we want to amend or do anything else to it. So,
Motion we approve.
okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
We have motion and second. Now, we're open for discussion. Any questions or discussion?
So we got this overall, this is gonna be a 75-cent raise, 2% raise, but we've got wages spread out among all these different pages here, right? So where do we take from, or where do we give to on this?
What do you mean, where do you take?
Okay, so like we got wages of $87,000 right here on wages
Okay.
in general fund, okay? Am I basically just, are we looking at adding 2% to that? Or, because this is just basically,
so
this is an overall is what you did, right?
I did. I have this broken down in line item for each, for the 2% and for the 75 cents.
Okay.
This is a lot of paper to print out for each one. So that's why I did the main sheet that's got the totals that'll show you exactly how your budget will be affected. So it is broken down by department. The raise includes not only for wages, it also includes for matching taxes, for your retirement. And so you can see the difference on each sheet
Okay.
as to how it will affect.
So if I'm understanding, this would be with the 2% raise, how much each of these would
Yes,
be
ma'am.
increased?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Well, not increased, but that's what it will be. So it's not gonna, a 75-cent raise is not gonna increase the office budget by $475,000.
Right.
That's what
With
their
it, it would
budget
be,
will be,
gotcha,
yes,
so we're on the same page.
yes.
So it's looking like basically your 2% raise is gonna be more economical.
The 2% raise
It's-
is cheaper than
yeah,
doing
it's gonna be cheaper.
the 75.
Yeah, and so basically, so we take general fund here at the office, and it's at 474 on wages.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, it's not just wages, that's including,
That's
the
everything.
entire budget.
Okay, so so this is entire budgets right here. Okay, gotcha. So we're gonna be adding. Okay, gotcha. Okay,
So
that helps
actually,
me.
there are three choices, one not to do one with 2%,
Mm-hmm.
and one with 75 cents per hour.
Mhm.
So that's what we're looking at.
Right.
Do I,
Um,
does anybody want to make a motion one way or the other about that, or,
No, I need to look. I need to
okay?
put all these numbers on here.
And the revenue amounts that's on these overview sheets includes adding back in the local option. Now, I was very conservative as far as how much to add back in, because there's no way to
know.
project,
Right.
sales tax.
Yes.
Uh, um,
That doesn't look that much, but it's just
I did a projection on sales tax based on I
Oh,
took
I'm sorry.
I took Chief Davis's advice, and I went back and I looked over 4 years, and I averaged out, and I looked for any anomalies or anything like that. And basically, on that sales tax, we hit. I'm gonna try to find where I have it here. We do basically a 6% increase every year is our trend.
Okay.
So if you were a 6% increase from last year, which was at 946K, you throw that back up to $1.002 million as a projection.
Mhm.
Now, because I'm working off of information before this other information just came in that we were presented, I was gonna say, obviously, we gotta move that down because we thought we were losing that revenue, but now we can put that back up, so that throws that revenue in there. And I was looking at it, it was basically a 35% loss is what they were looking at on those 2 3/4 pennies.
Mhm.
So I guess that takes that part out. So that's revenue that we're getting in that I wasn't expecting on this. So I almost feel like,
I just got that information.
yeah, no, it's fine. It changes a whole dynamic of everything that I'm working on here, but it's a positive change on our dynamic.
Very.
Because there's some other, it almost helps ensure some of these things that I know taxpayers are wanting to see on here. So, but honestly, just to do, and just to do this right now in this amount of time, it's going to take to reload all these numbers, and it's going to take a couple hours for me anyways, and I'm not going to make everybody sit here and wait for me, obviously.
So
Because I did include the cut.
Okay, so I do fully believe that by the end of this fiscal year, we'll have over $1 million in revenue from the local option. And I could have budgeted for that for this next year, but I'm not, just like I do my own personal budget, I'm not gonna increase it not knowing exactly how much we'll get.
What did
So I
you-
try to do a happy medium of what we got and then what I think that we'll get for next year.
So did you put on here 850 was the projection?
Right.
Okay. All right. So like if my motion would be to, and I don't want to make a motion, I'm not making an official motion, but would be to increase that to 1 million because based on our trends, I think we'll get that. And that's also plus we didn't have Safeway the entire year. So that's going to even add to that as well. But I would say you could project $1 million. I mean, I would say that'd be safe to say. You can throw another 150,000 in there on
Are you
revenue
saying
projections.
for sales tax,
For the revenue, he wants me to update the,
which would be a wonderful thing because that's not just our local citizens, that's citizens from all around the world, the county.
It's more of a voluntary tax, yeah.
Yeah,
which
it's a
I'm
great
fine
thing.
with doing that. Like I said, I was just trying to be conservative as far as you don't want to over budget that you're gonna get
Right.
all this revenue in and then do your spending based on I think I'm gonna get $1 million in on revenue.
Because there might
Yeah,
be a
and-
slump in sales.
Because you
Who knows?
can't budget to the penny
The,
on.
the way
budget.
I'm wanting to do our spending is not necessarily based on revenue. I don't want to base our spending on revenue. I want to base our spending based on past years averaged out with those increases, those decreases averaged out. That's how I want to base our spending and then balance it. And I talked to Mr. Jekyll today, and I get, I'm not trying to raise Cain here or nothing like that, but I get that the state encourages people to over budget but if you look at the
I'm
voters,
sorry, excuse me, over budget?
basically, let's say we're expecting, I'm just using a figure, let's say we're expecting $1 million revenue, and then we decide that we want to go ahead and put in what we expect to spend in expenses at $1.25 million. So we've put in there
Why would you do that?
25%. Well, that's currently where we're at right now. We're at without that sales tax option that changed, we were at 12% over, which is a lot better than before. I think before we were like every year before that was 33%, 42%, 29%. Those were the years where we over budgeted, and that was your proposed and actuals. So that was what we hit over before on the years prior.
Just so I'm clear on what you mean by over budget, you're talking about overestimating our revenue or underestimating?
Overestimating our expenses from our revenue. That's what I'm talking about.
So you're saying you don't want us to build in a cushion in case there are extraordinary
There,
expenses outside of-
no, I'm not saying that at all. You can keep a very good cushion and balance a budget. You don't have to. If we're looking at 12%, and that was before the property tax. We had a 12% cushion, and we're looking at these cushions are averaging around like $300,000 a year over 4 years. So that means, we're basically up to $1.5 million in what we spent versus what we budgeted for, what we received in. So we're receiving in. We're in a good state right now, and that's a good thing. And if it continues going like that, what I'm calling for is these small, like if we could basically come out and say, and I ran the numbers on, I've got it for you here, and I don't expect you to vote on it tonight. I'd like y'all to read it over, but I think that we could do a property tax decrease of 15%, and you know how much money we're losing on that? $75,000. That's all.
May I interject?
Yeah.
You're basing numbers on the fact that we have had growth here, which is a good thing.
No,
Which
I'm basing
increases-
numbers on
which
4
increases our
years.
property tax.
Okay.
We've had,
Yes,
this last year alone, we have had quite a growth in property tax.
I am
because
taking
of new
y'all's,
businesses.
yes, I'm taking y'all's advice, and I am averaging out over 4 years, and that's exactly what I'm doing, and I'm going off of
Chief, did you have-
trending.
I think Chief had something to.
I was just gonna ask a question. If we're gonna cut the budget a little bit every time, where does that stop? Like, okay, you cut the budget this time because we didn't spend all the money that was in the budget. Next year, you're gonna do the same. Next year, you're gonna do the same. Next year, you're gonna do the same. Where does it end?
Well, where does it end on the upside? Next year, you're going to increase it.
But we didn't
Next year,
spend it.
increase it.
That's what I'm saying.
No,
We didn't
and I
spend
and
all the money. We
and
didn't bust the
I think that there's some.
That's what I'm getting at.
I got you.
If we're doing a good job as supervisor to make sure we don't spend the money, why then in turn cut the budget every year?
Point well taken, and I think that there's.
That would be my question and concern. That would be my only concern.
And I think that's an excellent concern. And so if I'm heading a department, what I would like to see is, and this is something we can work on down the road, is let's say that, they save this much money. Well, why can't we earmark a percentage of that money for next year so that can go in their budget, and it gives them incentive to save that money?
I don't believe you can do that.
You can't earmark money that says it's an incentive. I know on the federal side you can.
It goes back into the general fund or the sewer and water fund, but
But I
not
mean-
earmarked, no.
So let's just say that, if the police department saves $100,000, why can't we say next budget meeting, well, last year they saved $100,000. Let's put $50,000 back into their budget over because they worked hard to save that taxpayer money. Let's do that, and split it between the department and the taxpayers.
I'm having a hard time following you, but I don't follow what you're saying, but that's.
Okay, so
In theory, that would work great, but next year at budget time, you're not gonna wanna increase their department by $50,000. Cause you'll come back next year and be like, we need to cut this even more.
That's
Well-
what I'm getting at. And that's my concern is if you cut 50,000 or whatever out of mine this year, you're gonna wanna cut more next year. You're gonna wanna cut more next year because you're gonna
Well, and again, look at the opposite.
Understand, I mean.
I'm not, this is not my money. This is our money. This
You're
is
exactly right.
taxpayers'
It's
money.
Not my money.
And so that being said, if we're continually saving this money and we're continually aren't spending that amount, yes, let's give some credit to the departments, but also let's give some credit back to the taxpayers because it's their money. Let's find a way. Think of what good PR it would be for us as a city. While the county's talking about raising property taxes, we could cut it 15%, advertise we're cutting property tax 15%, and then, can you imagine how good that would look? And we
sounds
totally
great.
afford it.
It sounds great.
And
on
what
paper, but-
happens if there's another flood like
Exactly,
2010,
exactly.
and that wipes out our general fund in 2 days?
Yes, and
Okay, what's insurance
Cole,
for?
Councilman Ebel, right now, we could stand to redo our whole sewer system, all of our sewer lines, of our water lines, sidewalks. We're talking about millions of dollars if we did everything that's really needed. That's why we have to cushion every year enough in case something happens, like a catastrophe at the water plant.
Gas prices.
Gas prices, we're looking at, we're looking at.
We could have an earthquake.
Excuse me, we were looking at 138,000 suddenly we had to add because we have a water tank that we had to pay 50% on out here. We don't, it's not like budgeting our own personal budget because we don't know.
Absolutely it
We're talking
is.
about millions of dollars that could pop up overnight.
Okay, and when we run millions of dollar businesses, we don't run them like that. We have emergency funds, and I'm not saying we don't have emergency funds, but we don't need. Right now, we're literally our emergency fund, if I'm correct, over the past 4 years is literally 75% of our yearly budget. That's our emergency fund right now. We've got money.
Okay,
We've got
then,
it. So
based
why
on-
are we going to continue
based-
to
based
why
on
can't we
what-
help the taxpayers
Okay,
out?
based on what you're saying, would it be a good, in your interest, would it be a good thing for the city to start redoing all of our water lines, all of our sewer lines, and go down to whatever our basic thing is to pay for all of that right now, if we have the money? Is that what you want to do? Because
If
we can
we-
use, believe me, we can use the money tomorrow.
I mean, if that comes down
We
to
can deplete it as
right
fast
now-
as you want
Yeah.
to.
And that's what I'm trying to avoid is us deplete, like just
Well,
because
but-
we, and that's the
that's
attitude
what-
I'm trying to stop is this whole, we have money, so let's spend it.
Okay,
No,
but-
let's.
but
But
we-
we're not.
But
Okay.
Why do
We're
they?
not.
Why do we have excess money if we're spending
That's
it?
She
right.
just suggested that.
I'm just saying, with your theory, that's what we would do. You said, we've got this money, we better spend it.
My
So we-
theory is if we got too much money, let's help the taxpayers out. They're about to get a property
But
tax
we need
increase.
that. We need that.
We
sir.
need $75,000.
Okay, I think we talked about this last time. We have two sources of revenue for our general fund. We have property tax and we have the sales tax. We don't have a state income tax like in California or some of the other states. That's our only two sources except for some incidental things. If I just don't think you know, in Carthage, we have one of the lowest property taxes around in Carthage. Now, you're not talking about the county, that's a different situation. Look and see what we have as a tax rate and how it compares with other cities around here before you start cutting off our stream here.
So now I'm going to compare to cities and look at the grass greener on the other side. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to give you real numbers from this budget. $75,000 every year projected in property tax. That's averaged over 4 years. We average $263 over every year more projected local sales options tax. We average $262,000 every year on projected all the other taxes. That plus another $16,000 on projected sales tax. That is extra revenue. That means we are overtaxed. It's not our money.
I think you're missing the point. You see that in the budgeted amount, let's say, in property taxes, just because whoever did the budget before budgeted a lower amount because they didn't know for sure how much money was going to come in. I'm not done. Because they didn't know how much money was going to come in, they budgeted lower. And it's a perk that we got in extra sales tax or we got in extra property taxes. You cannot automatically determine how much money is going to come in. So just because it was budgeted lower does not mean that we're overtaxed. It just means that they didn't budget as much as it should be.
I'm working
Because you
off-
don't budget to the penny. I don't know how you do your personal budget, but I personally don't put
Okay.
mine to the penny.
I do budgets for a few different companies,
Well,
okay?
that's fantastic,
And
but
with a
this is
lot
not-
bigger budgets as well, okay? And what I'm trying to say is every other the government doesn't have this special thing where only natural disasters happen to them. It happens to personal businesses too. And yes, we have rainy day funds, okay? But no, I'm working off of actual numbers, not what we felt. What numbers came into the bank
Okay.
and what numbers we spent and went out. Those are the numbers. They're real numbers. It's not an opinion of me. These are facts. It has nothing to do with an opinion. And I'm just asking that we give the taxpayers a break. I mean, you were looking at, can you imagine the tax revenue that people come in and say, Carthage just lowered their tax rate 15%. I want to build a business there. And then that generates more sales tax revenue, which is on there right now, which isn't even included with my proposal, which is another additional hundreds of thousands of dollars. And my proposal is a balanced budget, tax decreases, water bill decreases. And if y'all would take some time and read all this, I'm not asking you to vote on it tonight. I want y'all to study this. And I'm not trying to present
So
it.
water
We
bill
can't
has
do that
nothing to
tonight.
do with.
It's a completely different area, absolutely. And I got it broken down in a different area.
Councilman, we're here, it's a special call meeting for the budget ordinance that we voted on last week.
Which is what I'm discussing.
We can't suddenly say, I have a new ordinance to present because you haven't, that's not what you're.
Absolutely I can. That's why we're here, is to discuss the budget and make changes. That's exactly why we're here.
Well, so specifically, what do you want to change?
Specifically, I'll give you my line items on it.
But
Would you like to
you
hear it
told
all?
us- But you did tell us, like, you didn't expect us to vote on this
And-
tonight, though.
and that's
And
okay.
I'm, s- and
Yeah,
like,
that's
and I'm all
fine.
for looking at it, but like, we've got to decide on the budget
Right.
and vote on it. We've already got
Okay.
the first
We
and
have
second,
one more
but-
reading, right? Correct?
No,
No,
this is our
tonight's the
last
last
reading.
This is the
one.
final reading?
Yeah.
Well, then
Yeah.
I would like for y'all to take some time then. I thought we had one more reading. I
No.
apologize. Okay. I would like y'all to take a few minutes and read over it. And I have run these numbers over and over and over again. And I'm telling you, this is a win for the city employees. This is a win for the council, and this is a win for the
Well,
taxpayers. And
Councilman-
I don't know how I've spent all night and I've spent all day. I've been going on this. I had to transfer everything from a PDF to Excel file, and this is a good solid plan. It's us going in and just really examining it. It's not us checking off, and everybody still gets a lot of stuff. There's just little it's equivalent to saying, you know what, I'm not going to drink a Starbucks coffee for a month, and I'm going to save $4 a day.
Okay, sir.
Those are the cuts I'm talking about.
Mr.
I didn't realize our departments drank Starbucks.
Councilman
coffees.
It's a
Ebel.
comparison, just like your
Excuse
comparisons.
me, Councilman Ebel, you talk about little cuts, you're talking about police department, $31,000 cutting their wage,
Okay.
$10,000 there. Well, let me just say, first of all,
He can't afford that.
we have some really great employees here. Why are you trying to punish them
Yes,
because we have a little
We can't
cushion
try.
of money? I don't understand what you're doing. We've saved our money, we have a cushion for a rainy day, we have a little bit of a reserve fund. We don't need to punish our employees because we've been pretty diligent with our budget.
And
Police department, $500,000 to answer your question is what's budgeted. Your amended budget is $431,000. I'm taking out $30,000, which puts you down to $470,000, which
That's
gives you
fine.
another
If you-
$31,000 for a whole nother employee.
That doesn't come in, though, that doesn't take into account between the 40 and the 43 hours that it costs
Right.
for each officer, because they don't get paid time and a half until after 43 hours.
it also
Which-
doesn't take into account that there's been an employee that's been out for several months without pay.
Since January.
Okay, and it does it, so overtime and part-time, wouldn't that fall under that area?
Which part?
Overtime 40 to 43 hours?
No.
That
For-
starts after 43.
Okay,
And the part-time, that is, we shot that the year before last, we went over that was already budgeted for.
Okay.
So,
I went off of trends. I went off of all y'all's advice, and I made something work.
the gas,
Gas can
I've
go up.
already cut it before you even had a chance to look at it. I already cut it
And that's the thing with all these
$2,500.
budgets.
Yeah.
It was $25,000 last year. It was $20,000 the year before that. I've cut it down to $17,500 before you even had a chance to look at it. So I've already cut it as much as I possibly could. If the gas goes up anymore, we're not gonna have any gas.
And I think that's what we,
And that's what I'm trying to tell
Tried to
you.
say
We've
last
already
time.
tried to cut it as much
That's
as we
right.
possibly could. Like you said, we're trying to cut it out to make it better, so.
I'm just wondering, just because we want to do what's right for everybody, especially our employees who work really hard and keep our city running, could we go ahead with the budget as we have already voted on it? Could you put a packet together and possibly earlier on next year, we can kind of take a look at what you're talking about?
I would have loved to, and every time I asked about the budget, said, hey, we're going to have a lot of time to work on the budget. Then I was given a 2-hour meeting to attend, and I was told we need to make our decisions on that. And this is when I came to the city. Then when I go to talk to employees, I'm told I can't talk to them.
Well, they were here to answer any of your questions that day.
Okay.
We spent quite a
That-
time
and that's
with their.
a that's a 2-hour meeting for a huge
We could've
budget.
gone
And I
longer.
get that's might be how things are done.
We could've gone
But I'm
longer.
trying to help the taxpayers out here. I really am. And I'm not trying to hurt y'all, and I get it, and it's a bit.
But you're making it sound like we're not trying to help the taxpayers and Cole
I'm
was
not
the
trying-
only one trying to help the taxpayers. That's what you're making it sound like.
I apologize if that's how
tired.
you interpret it,
Yeah.
but that's not
Well,
at all what I'm trying to
How
do.
many of us here are taxpayers
Well,
in
that's
this
what we're
city?
getting tired.
Excuse me, how many of us are taxpayers in this city?
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that's
Mr.
an
Eagle,
interpretation.
excuse me, we've got some taxpayers here.
I'm
I'm
a taxpayer
fine,
too.
I'm fine with paying a decent wage to our employees. They deserve it, they deserve everything they get. I'm saying do not punish our employees because we happen to have a good reserve in our budget.
It's not a punishment to be conservative with your money. I have to make cuts in my
But,
businesses.
Mr. Evil, you're not taking into consideration, one of the reasons we're doing really well with our property taxes is because we have a lot of tourists that have been coming in. We have some new industries here. We have, like you said, we have Safeway, we have Ace, we have several things.
60% of my business is bringing tourists in here.
Okay, but that's
I
a
get
good,
it.
that's a good thing that our
Right.
property tax revenue has gone up. We don't punish people because we're doing well.
It's not a
It makes no
punishment to make
sense.
cuts. It's not a punishment to make growth. I
Yes, it
propose
is.
growth. I
Yes, it is.
propose
Do-
growth
if you-
for him.
Okay.
I propose
excuse
growth
me.
for him.
You've cut your business back, what, 4 days, 3 days a week? Isn't that gonna hurt you a little bit financially because you've had to make that cut?
No, it
Don't you
actually
think
helps
that-
me because I'm not subsidizing a different area.
Okay,
and I'm
but it
trying to
would
help
hurt
different
these
things.
families. If you start cutting where they have already cut back to the bone already, you're gonna hurt these families. I'm not gonna, I do not want to see my employees hurt.
Okay,
You may
and
want to, I do not want to.
Your job is to look out for your employees. I get it. That's fine. My job is to look out for the taxpayers.
My
I'm
job
elected
is to look out
the
for
Your
taxpayers.
job
everybody.
is to look out for the whole town.
That's right, and
The whole town.
if you
Employees,
don't
everybody.
understand that by
Okay.
now,
Not
that's
just
what
the
we're
taxpayers.
doing.
Thanks
I
for
would hope that
assumptions
you-
of telling me
I would-
what I understand and what I don't.
I
And
would
what,
hope you would actually
okay.
care for us too.
I do care for y'all, but none of you, have you read this yet?
I did not have a chance to look at it.
Okay.
other than just
You
read
are
it.
welcome to read it. I went through this looking out for y'all. Have I not
But you
tried
don't
to have I not
understand
tried to
the
put
running
time
of
into
the
each one of y'all? Tell me this, have I not come out to y'all's departments and asked y'all what you need and try to help y'all out
Okay.
with everything you have? Have I done that?
Mayor,
Have I done
I
that?
mean-
Excuse me.
Have they done
Yeah,
that?
yes,
Mayor,
ma'am.
I move to approve the 2% raise for employees and move forward with this.
All right, we
meeting.
have a motion to approve the 2% raise. Do I hear a second to that? To amend it to a 2%?
I want to do 75%. 75%.
Percent.
Sorry.
We could.
There you go.
Everybody.
Wow, okay. Okay, wait a minute.
Wait, let me get my.
We have a motion,
Okay, we got,
50%, and then
did we get a second to the motion?
I did second her motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
To do the two.
is there any discussion about the 2%?
Given that we don't know what the revenue is going to be, I think we do need to be a bit conservative this
Okay.
year. We have given raises the past 2 years, so just looking at the numbers, 2%. It
Any-
helps employees without putting us too far out.
Okay.
Is there any more discussion on the 2% raise across the board? Okay, so let's have a vote. All in favor of the 2% raise?
I
And opposed?
Abstain.
So now I have to vote.
on the ordinance as amended to include the 2%.
Okay, I vote in favor of the 2%
We
raise.
need a motion to approve the ordinance as amended to include the 2% raise.
We already had the motion on the floor. We already had a
That's what
motion and
we're
a second for the
I think
budget.
it's
We're
an
just
amendment.
adding this to
From the
the,
first one.
we're
Right.
amending
First one.
That's
the,
right. So, yeah,
Yeah.
so any more discussion on the original motion?
For the 2%
For
raise.
the,
For the
for their
original
ordinance
ordinance.
to pass their budget.
Oh, but then we go back in a minute?
So this is a motion, because we're just talking about an emotion
I'm
on
sorry,
the
I-
I
raise.
thought then you deal with your amendments first and then we work back.
which we just
We
did.
did.
Okay, so that was approved, right?
Right.
And
I'm so
that's-
sorry, I
No,
thought.
no, and then
That's
I
an
forgot
approval
that
for the
we had
amendment.
For the
original motion on
amendment.
the original.
Okay, I thought we
We're back
did
to
that.
the
The original
ordinance
motion. We had it
with
before,
the
okay.
amendment.
Gotcha. My apologies. Okay,
No,
so we have the amendment approved. Now we're going back to the original motion with the amendment on it. Are there any other things we need to add that we talked about?
Everything was included
Okay,
on the packet.
so do I hear a motion now that we,
Well,
But the motion's already on there. So
We just
we
need
need
to
to
vote.
vote.
So,
All
yeah,
right.
I'd still like to, I've got a few more motions for amendments too. So my motion is to decrease the property tax revenue by $75,000.
do I hear a second? No second, it fails for lack of
Okay.
second.
trying to see how we do this as well. And I apologize, y'all haven't had time to read this, so I understand. But the other part was motioning for a 15% reduction on the, I guess I don't have a line item I can put this on, but it would be on the expected revenue for, trying to find my water here, I apologize. It's going to be in the very back here. Basically on the expected revenue.
That's gonna be your expenses. Here's your revenue.
Thank you so, oh yeah, I wasn't the wrong one. Thank you so much. On the water, so basically, motion to decrease our operating revenue by, where is it at here? $278,000.
Do I hear a second? No second, it fails. Like a second.
All right, and my other motion was going to be on favor of the sales tax based on that. And then that's all I've got as far as amendments goes.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have an amended ordinance. Could you read one more time so we know what we're, the amendment is?
Okay, the amendment is to do the 2% raise for the employees.
Okay, we have that amended.
So that has been a motion, second and passed.
Okay, so we now have the complete ordinance with the amendment.
What did
We have
we
to
have?
vote on it.
Did we have a motion earlier on the raising that to $1 million on the expected sales tax
We did
revenue?
not have a motion.
Okay, I guess I'll make that motion just to amend that to $1 million.
Well, can we do an arbitrary thing like that?
Well, it's another motion to amend the ordinance. And I will say that, that's something that you can always do later if the revenue starts to come in and you realize you're gonna be,
Yeah, it's
your
kinda hard to
revenue
project
projections are
just
gonna be
now.
higher than you expected, so.
I just like it being on record.
Right, but so there was not, now there's a motion to make that amendment
To
as well.
increase to $1 million.
To increase the
Okay,
million from
Do I
850K.
hear a second to that motion? Okay, if there's no second, it dies for lack of a second. All right, now we have a motion on the floor to vote on the ordinance as amended to 2% increase in employee salaries. I think I got that right. All in favor, please?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Any opposed?
Opposed?
Okay, 3-1. All righty. Then we had another item, but we're gonna, if you would table this to next time because we're not quite ready to have the amended budget
For the
ordinance.
current budget.
Because we don't have all that total information
Given all the
in yet.
drama, I've not been able to complete the
Well,
amended
we
budget.
just don't have all that
Okay.
information yet, so.
So we vote on that in July?
So I'll bring that to you at the
In
next.
July, the
meeting.
regular meeting, yeah.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be done before the end of the fiscal year.
Yeah, it's just, basically, it's just saying this is what we thought the budget would be. A couple of months later, we now know this is what
I
it is
gotcha.
amended.
Mhm.
So actually, after June 30th, we'll know more accurately anyway on that. So could I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn,
Well,
or
yeah,
motion to
yeah,
table?
To table that item till July 11th, our next meeting. Second, okay. All in favor, or is there more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And just a reminder, our next month's meeting won't be the 4th of July, it's next week, the 11th. Hope you all have a wonderful rest of the week. Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion, okay, please, motion.
Motion to,
Okay,
second.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, very good. Very good meeting, thank you.